When I was young, I used to think money was the most important thing in the world. Now that I'm old, I know it is. That's a quote from Oscar Wilde. And while there's some truth to it, I have learned there are some things just as important and more so priceless. Sobriety is definitely one of them. Community and connection absolutely are as well. I just actually spoke in another video about the movie It's a Wonderful Life, when George Bailey comes back to life, and scene at the end where all his friends and family and neighbors all gather to contribute money to him so he can keep his business. And his brother Harry raises a glass and says, "To my big brother George, the richest man in town." And it always stuck out with me. It talks about the importance of friendship and human connection in overcoming feelings of inadequacy. And that's so important as part of the sobriety process, where we come in, we're constantly letting ourselves down by vowing we weren't going to drink and then drinking again, but that's part of this disorder. And, in community, they can embrace you and love you until you learn to love yourself. And there's another quote in that movie where Clarence the Angel says, "No man is a failure who has friends." And that absolutely is priceless. And you might say, well, I don't have any friends, but I've talked about in a sober community, you make them quickly and you develop friendships that feel like you've had them for life, which I never thought you could develop a lifelong friendship, way later in your life. It's kind of an oxymoron, but it actually happens within sober communities, and a woman just shared today, she said, the most beautiful thing in the world is to help other people, to step outside your comfort zone and be vulnerable in ways that make others feel they can do it too. To be able to inspire others is the greatest. And that's a part of, the act of service, which is a big part of the recovery process, particularly one that AA, preaches all the time, and why people continue to come back to meetings, not just for their own benefit, but to help others as well, which also, of course, benefits themselves. I heard of a eulogy recently for a guy where the person said, how great he made others feel about themselves. And how you make others feel is so important. To live your life to make others feel good. That's something I've kind of fallen into inadvertently through the discovery process. I used to think, I thought so low of myself that nobody would be, at my wake. And now I'd like to think there'd be a line around the door, at least a virtual one, if it was done online. So, I now adapt that quote to say that no man or woman is a failure who has friends or is sober. They are both absolutely priceless. So that'll do it. As always, please like, share, subscribe, and remember, stronger, sober. The minute you take a drink, you are weaker. Thanks.